I know you're tired. I know you're hurting. And I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational. But that just wouldn't be our style. Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. Right on. Shotgun. DC right. Flip 90 dig. On the center, on the center. Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Air Raid Hour presented by the Buffalo Fanatics. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, and I am joined, as always, by my host Dave Tilton. You can him on Twitter at Tiltmoney. And before we get started today, we need your guys' help with something real quick because my audio. Is it repeating for you guys over there on the YouTube end? Like when I sentence, is it doubling up for you? My audio is messed. All right, I'm gonna have to go old school today. I don't know what the heck is wrong with it, but we're gonna have to go the built-in microphone. Is that better now? Now I can't even hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm an idiot. I was on mute. Yeah, you sounded fine.
There we go.
You had clicks and pops and a little repeating before, so the quality's a little lower, but there's no pops, there's no clicks. You sound great.
Well, you're just gonna have to hear the sound of my normal voice tonight, unfortunately, because I got to figure out what the heck is going on with my microphone. I'm gonna have to get Joe Miller on that because he is the microphone expert. Him or Bobby can help me out. But who we got in the house tonight, having to put up with my garbage early on?
Yeah, it's okay. Everyone's saying you're fine now, so it's okay. We got Dilly Dale in the house, Matt Campbell, Nick Watkins, Scott Blakely's in from BF, Elliot Eisler, of course, is in. Lone Wolf, saw Brian Bowers is in. Ryan Teal is in. Who else did we have come in since then? John Darrow, Maurice Anderson, Will Potter, who's been a regular now for the last few weeks, Roman Perry, Reed Levine of Bills Guys fame is in the house, Sheldon Cole. So yeah, we've got a good crew filing in to start this show out, right? And I don't know if we're going deep into the bargain bin tonight.
Oh yeah, so we are. We're getting lost in the bottom of that bar. But before we get there, there is one topic that I want to bring up because, listen, I got up this morning. I was feeling great. I had a day with a 7:30 a.m. I was feeling fine. I was having a wonderful day. And then I got on Twitter, and I see that Teddy freaking Bruschi people is opening his mouth. So, actually, the world knows. The world knows that last week, Matthew Stafford got traded in this blockbuster deal, sent 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff. It was absolute madness, craziness. We discussed it on this show. Since then, details have been coming in about just how that deal went down. You know, Denver's offer came in. It was Drew Lock in their top 10 pick. Other things have come in. So, but then Teddy Bruschi decided he wanted to open his mouth this morning. So apparently my stuff is just not working. So I'm going to duck out apparently. So
I mean, it's kind of okay now, but you might want to just check your internet or something. And I'll save.
I'm literally hooked up to the modem.
Yeah. Well, it's actually fine now. You're not lagging now.
Okay. So
yeah.
Anyway, Teddy Bruschi today. So the reports came out that Matthew Stafford, Patriots were in on it, and the Patriots were serious contenders for Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford said, "I'll take a trade anywhere but New England. I will go anywhere but New England. And the reason is Matt Patricia is on the coaching staff in Detroit. Matt Patricia was the coach in Detroit. Matt Patricia is a noted scumbag. Nobody likes Matt Patricia. The only person on the entire planet that likes Matt Patricia is Bill Belichick. So, of course, he's now the assistant head coach there. Yeah, so what does Teddy Bruschi come out today say on like a local Boston radio station? It's a good thing the Patriots didn't get Matthew Stafford because Matthew Stafford is too soft to play for the New England Patriots.
That's interesting. It's really interesting, right? You brought in a quarterback that wouldn't go after a fumble in the Super Bowl versus a guy that played with a dislocated arm to lead his team to a victory. I mean, literally, give me a freaking break. Give me a freaking break.
Matthew Stafford of rookie fame, mic'd up. I think it was his first or second start of his entire career. He was mic'd up in this game. He takes a shot and he dislocates his shoulder like he just popped out of the socket. He comes back in. This whole moment is mic'd up, throws the game-winning touchdown, and then runs off the football field. And they have to pop his shoulder back in again. Like literally one of, if not the toughest football players. But Teddy was saying that
he doesn't miss games. Matthew Stafford does not miss games. Okay.
The only time he misses is when Detroit is out of it. If Detroit was competitive the last couple of years, Matt Stafford wouldn't have been missing these games. And for Teddy, like, am I letting this bother me too much? Because Teddy is sitting here like, oh, Matthew Stafford wanted to be with his buddy Sean McVay, and he couldn't handle New England coaching. It's like, no, he didn't want to handle throwing it to Jacoby Myers, Devin Asiasi, and N'Keal Harry. He wanted to throw to Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Taylor Higbee. He wanted to go out to LA and play for a competitive football team with some really good playmakers on that defense. He didn't want to play for noted scumbag Matt Patricia and further Matt Patricia's career. If anything, Matthew Stafford wants Matt Patricia to go somewhere and fall flat on his face. Matt Stafford doesn't want anything to do with any future success that Matt Patricia has, because Matthew Stafford was probably so miserable with him in Detroit that he wants him to fail miserably and be out of the National Football League. So for Teddy Bruschi, what bugs me is he has a job at ESPN. Like, he is literally a national broadcaster. He gets paid millions of dollars to spew that shit on national television all the time and be one of the biggest homers. He just signed a deal with his college, University of Arizona, to be an ambassador while also still working for ESPN. Like, he gets paid millions of dollars to spew that bullshit on national television when he clearly has biases. Like, he clearly does have these biases. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
No, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, we've seen it from Rodney Harrison for years, right? On NBC. I mean, these guys, they're biased, right? I mean, that's just the nature of it. Like, it's one of those things where, you know, we talk about Nick Wright, we talk about Teddy Bruschi, Rodney Harrison. Like, these guys all have biases. I mean, look at Terry Bradshaw, another one, right? Tony Gonzalez. Like, all of these people have biases. Like, the only ones that really don't are the ones that are like the hosts of these shows that aren't like former play. Like, I shouldn't lump all former players in, because like Dan Orlovsky is quite like unbiased, I would say, when it comes to his opinion. But maybe that's to do with he wasn't like necessarily a great player in the league, so he can appreciate more you know, teams and different players than people who like Teddy Bruschi, who were part of this Patriots dynasty and like they live and die by that. So, you know what? Let's not even worry about it. It's garbage. You know, that's why people come us, hopefully, is to get away from that stuff, right? So yeah, I know what you're saying. He's probably, you know, we'll do it early tonight. He's the jabroni of the week, obviously. So
there we go. Oh, wait. Oh, without the
Stop you though. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
Great.
We got Joe Schmo coming in saying, "Sup, fellas? Good to see y'all still putting in that work all off season, my man. We will be here for the most part every Monday and Thursday. There might be some dates in July that we might take a little vacation. You might take a little time off. You might take a little time off when the kid arrives in the next week or two. But
Due date is tomorrow, so I am any hour now.
Yeah,
I might have to
might
leave
be,
this week. Who knows? I don't.
It
I
might
don't
be
even know
the
when we'll finish
Bills.
this
It
show.
might be the Bills guy on Monday, but yeah, we're going to be bringing it to you. You can call us the Bargain Bin Boys today because that is going to be the theme of this show. Who are some players on the free agent market that the Buffalo Bills could pursue? That, how much have we talked about? How much has that been the talk of this offseason? Oh, the COVID cap. I mean, it just came out today that we're going to get $10 million extra dollars. That's cool. But it's like, well, we have to cut this guy and this guy and this guy to save money just to afford this guy, and that guy. Daryl Williams and Matt Milano are going to cost us so much money. If we bring them back, we can't afford anything else. And it's this and this and this. And all offseason so far, and rightfully so, I think, because it's more fun, we've been talking about the J.J. Watts of the world. I forgot to mention Trey Hendrickson, who I want so bad.
Oh, yeah, but he's not a bargain bin.
Oh, he's not a bargain bin. I forgot to mention him on the last show when we were shooting for the moon, and I wanted to punch myself after the yeah. I wanted to punch myself after. I'm like, how the hell did I not say that?
Him.
I don't think I did. I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. I didn't mention him on the last show. But, I mean, if you look at it, right, this offseason is shaping up to be weird. First of all, Brandon to be, he is going to be the accountant this offseason because Mitch Morse, John Brown, even if it's Vernon Butler, Mario Addison, all these guys, the guys that they see here being a long time in Dion Dawkins and Trey White, who just signed an extension, Jordan Poyer, like it's going to be restructure. I can see number one, Brandon being clearing up a lot of cap space, maybe mortgaging a little bit into the future this year with cap space. I think we'll have more money to play with than people think, but still, this offseason's go for it. What do you want to say here?
Well, I was going to say the good thing about this situation is that all teams are in the same situation, right? It's not like we're in cap hell and we're trying to figure this stuff out. Like every team's going to be in this similar situation. And what I do think that will lead to is that more guys are going to be willing to restructure to stay on rosters than they might have been otherwise in a normal situation where you have like a team out there that has $50 million in cap space and you're on a team that has like no cap space. Maybe that guy wouldn't be as willing to restructure in the past. But given that by and large, other than a few outliers, most teams are not going to be able to drop the huge dollars in volumes like we've seen in the past free agencies. I think that more guys will be willing to restructure and maybe, put more money in like backloaded and give them future bonus, whatever it is. They may end up getting raises. I mean, but if it pushes the money out from this year, then I think guys are going to be willing to do that to stay on the team.
And that's another thing too that I wanted to get at, because there are usually 4 tiers to the offseason, right? You go and you chase your big marquee guy, your Stephon Diggs, all right? Then you go and you look for your middle tier free agents. Lone Wolf comes in and says, we overpaid for bargain bin players last year, the Deanne Laney. I would argue those weren't deep. I would argue they played like bargain bin players, but they weren't bargain bin players. Those were what I would call mid-tier players.
Quentin Jefferson would be maybe the closest thing to a quote bargain bin.
And I think that's just from a name recognition standpoint. I don't even think that's from an on-play standpoint, on the field play standpoint, because he did well in Seattle, especially in the analytic community. But, I would consider all those guys, Trent Murphy, I would consider all those guys middle tier, because in free agency, you always got to pay more than you're comfortable with. Like AJ Klein, we're like, we look at that contract and we're like, he's another guy we could probably restructure. But I would consider those even mid-tier players. We're shooting lower than AJ Klein at this point, I think, with some of the players on our lists. We do have some mid-tier guys in the Vernon Butler category, but I would consider those guys middle tier. So in the offseason, you go and you chase your studs if you got the money. We chase Stephon Diggs. You sign your middle tier guys, you draft guys, and then you look for the bargains, which is what we're going to talk about today. Doug Whaley used to call them the dust settlers. But there could be this year dust settlers on steroids because of the COVID cap and because of the cap situation that so many teams find themselves in. And this has been a really big talking point on Twitter. How many teams are going to have to cut good football players? Just like we're expecting to see the Bills cut Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson, John Brown. We're expecting to see them go nuts and possibly just dump a bunch of players a year earlier than they expected. Other teams got to do that too, especially with some teams like Philly and New Orleans in the cap situation they're in. if there's not a lot of money to go around and there's a lot of good players on the free agent pool, you could see the Buffalo Bills maybe sign some mid-tier players to bargain contracts or some star players to short-term mid-tier contracts. You could see the Buffalo Bills adding a lot of players this offseason that are really good off-season, like that are really good players that they would never be able to get for that price in any other offseason.
No, I agree. And so I think, I mean, there's still going to be teams with good cap space, but there's going to be I think you're going to see fewer of those mega deals. Like it's going to be, there's still going to be players that get them, right? But there's going to be fewer of them to go around. So we'll see how it plays out. And we got a super chat here from Timothy Payne, says, need to bring in a mean O-line coach, get these boys run blocking. Let's go Buffalo. So thank you both for the great content all year. Well, we appreciate that, Timothy. You know, Bobby Johnson was the guy we both like, and I think still like as an O-line coach. I don't think, you know, I don't know that O-line coaching is necessarily the problem here with the group, but I mean, that's something that, you know, the offensive line is something we're going to talk a lot about today when we're talking about bargain bin and in the draft, obviously, but I don't know.
It seems like something got lost in translation this season. Like going back now and rewatching games, it really does seem like just something was lost in translation. You know, we're going to get to talking about running backs in a little bit, and I'm not even that mad at Devin Singletary or Zach Moss, to be honest with you. Like, there are some people who are throwing out some absolute flamethrower language in our family chat today about Devin Singletary, and I was getting a little hot under the collar with him. But it's like, you know, it's going to be a conversation to be had. Do we just try to keep doing what we're doing with the John Felicianos and the Darrell Williams and the Mitch Morses of the world and hope Cody Ford can come around? Do we draft a bunch of guys high? Because there are so many good, like this draft class between like pick 25 and like 60, I think there's like 10 starting offensive linemen. And then I love this offensive line class. And
especially where we're drafting. I like it, like for the value.
And
it seems really good.
Or do we want to just try to replace the Darrell Williams and the John Felicianos of the world with similar players? And that's what we're going to look like. That's what we're going to look at today. Like, are there even similar players to replace them with? And just hoping that the scheme gels around all of this. So, or do we look to add a running back? Who knows? So Jake Jordan coming in saying $3 million for Tyler Matakevich. Man, the Bills really made it a priority last offseason when they thought they were going to have money to fix special teams, and they did so. Tyler Matakevich and the special teams unit this year, you know, Taiwan Jones, Saranio, Tyler Matakevich, Andre Smith,
Darryl Johnson.
It was a great group on special teams this year. He's another guy you could see restructured. You know, Timothy Payne says a mean streak is missing. I don't disagree. That's one of my biggest beefs with Mitch Morse is I feel like he's a great pass blocker and he's also a good run blocker once you get him out in space. But I've always questioned his ability to anchor an offensive line, especially when you're playing like a 34 defense and a nose tackle. A guy like Chris Jones, I think could just push a guy like Mitch Morse aside in the running game, and those guys can get into the backfield before the running backs really have a chance. So that's where my sort of, I don't want to say hatred for Mitch Morse because I think he's a above average football player in the National Football League comes, but my questions for Mitch Morse comes. But let's get right into it. And let's start with the quarterback position because Nathan Peterman signed a contract today with the Oakland Raiders, and he got 1 year, $2.75 million from the Oakland Raiders. So, you know, I made a comment on my podcast, The Take. I said Matt Barkley's probably going to come in at about 1 year, $2 million, $500K guaranteed. And I was laughed at by some people. I was laughed at. And I'm not here looking for like redemption. I'm not here looking to rub it in anyone's face, but that's what backup quarterbacks get paid, even if they're not good. Like that's just the way it works. So the Buffalo Bills are going to have to ask themselves this offseason, do we want to pay Matt Barkley $2.5, $3 million to sit on the bench? Or do we understand that we're screwed anyway when he gets hurt and just roll with Davis Webb, Jake Fromm, and then what? Because another issue that we run into this year is a lot of the depth of the draft is gone. So last year I had like 6 or 7 sleeper quarterbacks, right? Like I really like Bryce Perkins from Virginia. I really like Steven Montez from Colorado. I thought there was a lot of guys with potential towards the end of the draft. There aren't that this year because all of those players got to go back and play another year of college football. They got an exemption. So they decided another glory year in college football was more important to them than being a UDFA or 7th round, draft pick. So the depth of this draft class is minuscule compared to most draft classes. So that's another question you have to ask yourself with Matt Barkley. But what are some quarterbacks you're looking at in terms of, if it's Jake Fromm, Davis Webb, and Josh Allen, you're gonna want to add a fourth quarterback, at least for training camp, a guy to come in and supposedly compete with Jake Fromm. Who are some bargain bin quarterbacks on your list?
Well, to be honest with you, if I'm making this decision right now, depending on how free agency goes, I'm actually probably just going in there with Allen, Fromm, and Davis Webb, and then maybe bringing in another UDFA or something as the fourth. But if you're talking about guys that I think we should maybe take a look at or consider, I mean, look, Matt Barkley had the 2-year, $4 million deal. We know Nate Peterman just got his 2+. If you're willing to give Matt Barkley another 2-year, $5 million deal at 2.5 per, or another 2-year, $4 million deal, honestly, to me, that's probably the best bargain you're going to get, because he's 31 years old. Okay. So he's probably not going to get a ton of chances to really do much else other than be a backup somewhere else. And where else is he going to go where he's going to be able to potentially fill in and do the most help than with this team right here? So Matt Barkley has got to be the top of their list as far as free agent quarterbacks to bring back. Then I had two other possibilities. One, CJ Beathard, who's a free agent from the 49ers. He made under $1 million last year. He has starting experience. He's only 28. He's probably not going to have the biggest market outside of the 49ers, maybe trying to bring him back. And who knows if the 49ers
he could end up in New York.
Yeah, who knows?
LaFleur.
He could. But he'll be on the lower end of options as far as price. And then who knows? You've got two guys who are both becoming free agents in Tampa, and Blaine Gabbert and Ryan Griffin. They're both free agents. So maybe one of those guys leaves and decides, I don't want to be a third string, like Ryan Griffin in this case. Maybe he doesn't want to be a third string quarterback anymore. Maybe he has a chance to be a backup somewhere. And they, those guys made around $1 million, a little over this year's backups. So is a guy like Ryan Griffin or a guy like Blaine Gabbert willing to come in as a backup and, take $2 million if the Bills, move on from Matt Barkley? So
yeah.
To be honest with you, I feel like just bring back Matt Barkley. I don't know that you're getting a ton out of bringing in those other guys, but if you're talking about bargains, those are options to me.
Yeah, and Harold Fuller brought up Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I'm going to address that in a second, because a lot of people have said that. Yeah, number one, too expensive. But my biggest concern, if Josh Allen goes down, right? If something, knock on wood, something happens to Josh Allen and he has to miss an extensive period of time, I want Jake Fromm as my quarterback. No offense, even if Matt Barkley was on the roster, if Josh Allen were to get hurt and our quarterbacks were Matt Barkley and Jake Fromm, I'd want Matt Barkley to finish the game, but then I'd want Jake Fromm to be my starting quarterback. Why? Because I'd rather close my eyes with potential and hope for the best than put out there a guy like Matt Barkley where I know who he is. Matt Barkley is not a 500 quarterback in the National Football League, and he never will be. Maybe, over a 10-game stretch, he can win you 4 games, 5, but it's what's the saying? You want a backup quarterback to get you 500.
Right.
And maybe Matt Barkley could limp you to 500, but if this team if Josh Allen goes down for 5-6 weeks, you're going to want, I think, the potential of a Jake Fromm, a guy who played quarterback at Georgia, in the SEC, has been in the college football playoff. Is he the greatest prospect in the world? No. Is he the next Tom Brady? No. But at least he's more battle-tested, I think, and he's got that SEC pedigree. And there was a reason why people talked about him as a higher pick. So to me, I think that I would rather have Jake Fromm. But my concern, and where I like a CJ Beathard, is if Josh Allen goes down in the first quarter of a game, I don't want Jake Fromm coming off the bench. Jake Fromm has never been a backup in his entire life until this year. I don't want Jake Fromm coming off a bench. He's not that kind of quarterback. Just like I don't want, even a Davis Webb coming off the bench. There are quarterbacks that are just built to come off the bench. CJ Beathard is one of those guys.
Yes.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of those guys. I look at Brandon Allen in Cincinnati, free agent, maybe as one of those guys, where if Josh Allen gets hurt in the middle of a game, those guys come in. But if it turns out Josh Allen is out a month, Jake Fromm moves into the starting position, and those guys are the backup on game days. That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
As for Ryan Fitzpatrick, like
too expensive. I mean,
the Denver Broncos just offered the 10th overall pick in Drew Lock for Matt Stafford and got turned down. The Detroit Lions just got 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. Washington was in, and they offered a ton. New England was in, they offered a ton. Like, there are so many teams that are backed into a corner at quarterback this year. New England has a middle of the first-round pick. They're not going to get any of the big-time guys, and their quarterback is Cam Newton. The Texans could be backed into a situation. Indy has a late pick. They don't have a quarterback outside of maybe Jacoby Brissett if they can re-sign him. Mm-hmm. Who's another team? Chicago. They can't go into another year with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. They have a middle first-round pick. They're backed into a corner. There are so many teams. Washington is backed into a corner if Alex Smith doesn't come back. There are so many teams that are backed into a corner. Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be starting somewhere, like, period. And he's going to be making $8 to $10 million doing it.
Most likely. Yeah.
I'm sorry. We had a super chat coming in.
Yeah, we had a super chat. Let me find it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. We're going to talk about linebackers here in a second. Dylan Moses for Matt Lamorano, Freiermuth for Jonas Smith, for David Njoku to take Lee Smith's spot. And we're going to get to tight ends here in just a second, I think, after.
And the thing about the Matt Milano replacement, too, is unless you're willing to spend on a mid-tier linebacker, I don't see very many bargain bin linebackers outside of a guy who's already on our roster in Darren Lee. So if you lose Matthew Milano, you're either going to have to pay a guy a pretty significant chunk of money, and we'll get to those linebackers in a little bit. I'm talking like $6-7 million a year, or you're going to have to draft a guy early to come in and compete with Tyrell Dodson. So unless you feel comfortable with Deron Lee on like a 1 year, $1.5 million contract, and Tyrell Dodson duking it out opposite Tremaine Edmonds, you're going to have to pay someone, or you're going to have to use draft capital. That's one of those positions, I think. Sheldon Cole gets to it. He says, we need a veteran tight end in our roster to help Knox. I got some news for you. Yikes.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a cost-effective option at tight end, I mean, who are some of the tight ends on your list?
Yeah, let's just quickly go to tight end, since a couple people mentioned tight end, and then we'll come back to running backs and receivers. So obviously Gerald Everett is not going to be a bargain bin. He's going to be a guy.
He's number one on my list. Yeah,
he's a guy that's going to probably get $6-7 million a year. I mean, Jonnu Smith is another one who's going to get that much, so he's not a bargain bin. I like the idea there of Jonnu, but again, he's not going to be a bargain bin. So the two guys I had on my list that would be potentially bargain bin type guys, I have two guys. I have Trey Burton, who's coming off kind of a down year in Indy, and they have Mo Alley Cox and Jack Doyle still. Trey Burton's a guy who's flashed a little bit in the past when he was with the Eagles and the Bears. Didn't really have a huge role with the Colts this past year. He's more of a receiving tight end, but as a receiving tight end, he's a veteran. He's been around. He can bring some value. He's 30 years old. He only made around $1 million last year. You can maybe bring him in on a couple million for a 1-year deal as a guy. And then the other guy is a guy that we should be familiar with, who spent time with the Jets, and that's Eric Tomlinson. If you want to replace Lee Smith as a pure blocking tight end, and when I say Eric Tomlinson, I'm purely referring to him as a blocking tight end. I think he has like less than 20 career receptions or something like that. So he's a guy that played with Baltimore this year. They had the number 1 rushing attack. He's a blocking guy. And if Lee Smith does retire, I feel like Eric Tomlinson at age 29 is a guy that if you want to bring in and still have a blocking tight end role on this team, you can bring him in on a 3-year deal for a couple million per, and feel okay that you're going to have a steady and solid blocking tight end. And here's an interesting thing. I know we like shit on PFF a lot, but Tomlinson was the 5th highest graded run blocking tight end in the NFL per PFF. So you're getting good blocking out of him, and that's why you would sign him.
Yeah, Tomlinson was on my list as well. I didn't have Trey Burton because he seemed more a little bit of a gadget guy to me. Marcel Rios comes in and says Kyle Rudolph. I wouldn't trade for Kyle Rudolph for that contract. But if he gets cut by Minnesota, he is, again, we talked about it towards the top of the show. He's a guy who could get cut for salary cap reasons, where you would think there would be a market for him. But because so many teams are up towards the cap, he might have to take a 1-year deal for way less money than he typically would. And why wouldn't he come to Buffalo, who in their end of the year press conference mentioned they didn't like the he's complaining about his usage in Minnesota and refusing to take a pay cut because he wants to get cut. And
Right.
why wouldn't he want to come to a team like Buffalo on like a 1-year prove-it deal if there's not a market for him like he thinks there is, where the team has openly said at the end of the year, we want to get the tight end more involved in our offense. He
Right.
can come play with Josh Allen, come in on like a 1-year deal. Zach Ertz is another player who, again, I wouldn't trade for him, but if cut, is another guy you could throw into that category. So, like I said, there's a million options this offseason. The list I had was Chris Manhertz from Carolina, former Canisius basketball player, pretty good blocker. I think he might actually get paid this offseason because he's a really good blocker. Virgil Green,
Good blocker.
he's a good blocker. You can use him a little bit as a fullback. Demetrius Harris, former Kansas City T2.
I liked him a couple years ago as a free agent.
And, I had Mikael Pruitt, Jeff Swaim. These are guys you're just hoping to bring in, and like they can just be a serviceable 2-3 tight end. If you're looking for a guy to start over Dawson Knox, you're looking more towards the Zach Ertz or the Kyle Rudolphs. He was with Buffalo Manhertz.
Someone mentioned Jacob Hollister, but he's going to be probably $5 million a year.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean,
the last name I had is everyone can laugh at me. But he's a guy I've always liked. Yes, he's had 3 ACL surgeries since he's entered the National Football League. But if you're looking at a shot in the dark, Jake Butt.
Yeah.
He's had literally 3 ACL surgeries in the NFL between the ages of 22 and 25. But if we have an empty roster spot, why not bring him in for a look? So Jake Butt is a guy you could like I said, unless you're willing, like we're not talking about mid-tier free agents today. So like the Jacob Hollisters of the world, the Gerald Everetts of the world, we're bargain binning today. So Jody Smith, that's reaching for the stars. Like that's $10 million a year.
$10 million a year.
Yeah. If Jimmy Graham gets cut, that could be interesting. He had sort of a resurgence this year, but what are you getting for him outside of like the red zone? Like, is Dawson Knox your guy until you get to the red zone and then you throw Jimmy Graham in? But Dawson Knox has shown he's most effective in the red zone. So it's crazy. But if you're looking for just a solid number 2 to come in and replace Tyler Kroft for half the price, you mentioned Tomlinson could even be like a Lee Smith filler, Demetrius Harris, Chris Manhertz, Mikael Pruitt. I think there are guys who can do it in the bargain bin, but it should be interesting. Running back, Rico caused quite a stir on his show the other day. And here's what I'll say about Rico. Rico mentioned the name Tevin Coleman as his running back. And he's like, yeah, for like $6 million. No. Like I love Rico, but to me,
he's in the house tonight too.
Yeah, Rico, hopefully, cover your ears. But to me, Tevin Coleman is going to find himself in TJ Yeldon territory this offseason. And he's going to have to sign himself a 1-year, $2 million deal, a 1-year, $3 million deal, maybe get that $500K guarantee. I don't think Tevin Coleman's going to have much of a market this offseason. And if he did, if he doesn't, that's somewhere where you can strike where the iron's hot. Maybe he can have a career resurgence here in Buffalo. But I'm on team the offensive line was the problem, not on team the running back was the problem. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with Devin Singletary. I don't have a problem with Zach Moss. If we add another running back, what I want to add is the dimension we don't have there, and that is speed. I want to add speed. So Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, Jerick McKinnon, those are the 3 guys I had on my list. All 3 guys that Kyle Shanahan at one point in his life had a hard-on for, and I have a hard-on for the way Kyle Shanahan runs the football. So those 3 guys are on my list. Those are the only 3 on my list. Guys like Mike Boone and Samaje Perine, who could also be some value guys. We have Antonio Williams and Zach Moss. I don't need any Mike Boones or Samaje Perines on my list. I don't know. Are there any running backs that you would have on your list here?
I had McKinnon on my list. I mean, he's always had talent. He played behind AP at the end of the AP stint in Minnesota. Went over to San Francisco, signed that contract, and had the injuries, and he could never really kind of make his mark. But he always had talent, and I like McKinnon. He was a 4.41 guy in the combine, so he's got speed. He's maybe lost a step with those surgeries, but he's still got speed, and he's a good player. I had Yeldon on there. If you want to bring him back, he's familiar with the team. I wouldn't necessarily, rule that out. And then the other guy I had on my list that was an interesting one for me was Tyler Ervin, and he's more of a Swiss Army knife type of guy.
Yeah.
He spent time with the Texans. He was on the Packers this year. He can help you in the return game, right? If for some reason, like, McKenzie's gone and Roberts isn't back in a pinch, you can use Tyler Ervin in the return game. He can play out of the backfield. He's kind of like a really, really poor man's Curtis Samuel, I feel like. So bargain bin Curtis Samuel would be a Tyler Ervin, a guy that has experience and you could probably get for fairly cheap. So
yeah, he was definitely a name I looked at. I peeked a little bit, but I like towards the end of this draft, I actually this is what I don't like, Jake. This is what I don't like. This is what I don't like. I don't want old and slow. I want Devin Singletary is a very can juke you out inside of a phone booth type of shifty runner who can make the first guy miss, but just doesn't have the speed to take it all the way. Zach Moss is Mr. Business Decision. He's the kind of guy who's going to bowl you over. Maybe he's not the most agile guy in the world, but the Bills gave it to him a couple of times towards the and I know you're joking around, Jake. I'm just messing around with you, but Zach Moss, we saw the Bills give him the ball a couple of times towards the end of games and have success.
Mm-hmm.
I want that trait we don't have. I want speed. And I look at the end of the draft, I see, towards round, I'm cheating a little bit here because this is probably more rounds 4 or 5. Felton from UCLA.
Yeah.
Hawkins from Louisville has got some speed. Rakeem Boyd, who's a big Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt really likes Rakeem Boyd from Arkansas. I really love CJ Marable from Coastal Carolina. He is a guy who's kind of like a poor man's Felton over there at Coastal Carolina. They ran a really weird, funky offense there at Coastal Carolina. They have CJ Marable was used as a slot receiver, a return man, a running back. He's got some speed. He's got some juice. I like that. Nick Watkins says Jaret Patterson. Here's what I'm going to say about Jaret Patterson. I love Jaret Patterson. I'm not really interested in him for the Buffalo Bills. And people will be shocked by this because I've worn a Jaret Patterson jersey on this show before. I am the biggest Jaret Patterson fan there is. But to me, he is Devin Singletary. He is a smaller, shifty back who doesn't have that second gear. Maybe he's a little bit better lowering the pads and getting those tough yards than a Devin Singletary is. There are some slight differences to their game. But to me, Jaret Patterson and Devin Singletary are just too similar. I want something different, and I want speed. So give me one of those. Give me one of those Kyle Shanahan rejects to see if we can revive their career. Give me one of those just pure speed guys late in the draft to throw in there and be the CB3 you can maybe activate. I don't know. I'm looking for my Darrington Evans, and it just doesn't exist this year, does it?
Could have had him. People mention Ingram and
no speed.
Kenyon Drake, but those guys are going to be too expensive. I mean, I know Ingram's kind of getting towards.
You could probably get Ingram on the cheap, but a couple people mentioned Drake and stuff. That was last show, man. That was the dream.
Yeah. Drake's gonna get over $5 million a year. He got $10 million this past year, right, on a 1-year deal. So I would love Kenyon Drake. Don't get me wrong, but he's not a bargain bin, and unfortunately, I think it's not going to be happening. So I guess receivers now, huh?
I got some receivers that I love. I actually really liked this list of guys that I think we could get on some bargains.
There's 3 guys I had that I thought could be bargains, and these are speed guys. I got speed guys on my list. So I got John Ross as a reclamation project. I don't know how cheap he's going to be. Okay. His value's depressed. I know that, but I still don't know if you're going to get him for bargain bin price, but he should be cheaper. He's a 4.2 guy. He's always had an injury history, but he's that burner, man. He's worth taking a chance on, I feel like, on a cheap deal. And he was coming off his last year. He just made 4.7. I don't know. He's going to get $4.7 million a year. So, we'll see. And then 2 other guys I had that are probably in more of the bargain bin territory. One is Marvin Hall. That was on the Detroit Lions and Cleveland Browns this past year. He had his best year as a pro this year. I was just looking at his yards per catch numbers, and he only had last year 18 receptions, but 302 yards. So he's around 17 yards a catch on his receptions. Okay. And he's a deep threat he was a deep threat for Matthew Stafford. So I like Marvin Hall. And then a guy that you've mentioned a couple times before, although Seattle's shown interest in bringing him back, is Philip Dorsett. Another guy that could maybe
never played it down for him.
What's that?
Never played it down for him. Got hurt.
Never played it down for him, but they did come out and say that they would be interested in bringing him back. But all three of those guys, I feel like, would be bargains. And so people are going to say, and they're going to look at, Corey Davis, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel. Like, I love those guys, but they're not going to be bargains, although I would love to have them. So I feel like Ross, Hall, Dorsett are more real.
Curtis Samuel would be the splash guy that you spend money on because he can replace Isaiah McKenzie.
I don't disagree with Brian that John Ross is trash, but we're shooting for bargain bins.
That's what you do on the bargain bin. You shoot for traits. But here's the thing: if we re-sign John Brown, to me, this is all moot point. If we re-sign John Brown, this is a moot point. Yeah. But if we cut John Brown and then Isaiah McKenzie and Andre Roberts on both regions, here's the predicament I find myself in. You have Stephon Diggs on one side. That's set. You have, and I'm writing this down so I don't lose my mind. You have Gabe Davis on the other side. That's set. And then you have Cole Beasley in the slot. Those are your three who are there to stay. I think that you have a guy in the pipeline coming up in Hodgins that can be inside, outside, but he's not a burner. He's a size guy. He's more of a Gabe Davis type than he is, even less so of a Gabe Davis type because I don't think he's got the same downfield speed. But he's not going to replace John Brown on that outside, especially with the speed. Isaiah McKenzie gives you that jet sweep ability, and Andre Roberts gives you that kick return ability. What I'm looking for is if we can manage to get McKenzie back and we can manage to get Andre Roberts back, I would want maybe a speed guy who can platoon with Gabe Davis, because I don't know if I fully trust Gabe Davis on the outside all the time. And even so, if one of Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs gets injured, you want another speed option on the outside. Isaiah McKenzie can't play the boundary. Andre Roberts can't play the boundary. Isaiah Hodgins can play the boundary, but you're lacking that speed. I like Jake Jordan coming in with a little bit of a sleeper here pick for us. You want fast. You want Otis Anderson from UCF, 4.2 with great returns too. Also has hands, 3 years, about over 300 yards receiving. Could be a great depth piece. Yeah, that would be a guy that you would look for in those middle to late rounds of the draft to sort of add that. But I'm looking for a guy to platoon with Gabe Davis. So that's what I had in mind. Kenny Stills is number one on my list. Kenny Stills.
Oh, how did I miss Kenny Stills? Add him to my list too. I completely forgot about him.
I had Kenny Stills. Like you, I had Philip Dorsett. Like you, I had Marvin Hall. And then I had three more. Two of them these guys could cost money. These guys could end up being mid-tier guys. Damiere Byrd.
Yep.
A guy I think was criminally underutilized in New England because Cam Newton can't throw the ball more than 10 yards in the air. Keelan Cole, a guy who I've always felt was criminally underutilized in Jacksonville. And he's got return ability, so he could be your John Brown replacement to platoon with Gabe Davis and return kicks.
He's going to get a little. I think he's going to be more towards the mid tier.
Yeah, that's some wishful thinking on my part.
It's a nice thought. I like him.
But here's the thing: if he's filling two roles, right? If he's filling the John Brown role and the Andre Roberts role, you could probably pay him a little bit more. Like you could probably give him that $4 or $5 million a year contract if it's a short term deal. And then I had David Moore from Seattle. Burner.
Yeah, I like David Moore too. I like David Moore.
He also, I think that's probably wishful thinking. Someone's probably going to pay him for his speed. Got 4.4 speed. So, there are some interesting names. But like I said, what I'm looking for in the free agent market is a guy to platoon with Gabe Davis. I want another boundary speed receiver in case one of those two gets hurt. Because I feel like if one of those two gets hurt, we're in a bind. We're in trouble. So that is why. Andrew mentioned T.Y. Hilton. That would have been the last show. That would have been the money show. We're going for the bargain bins today. But that brings us to offensive line, and all I can say is, yikes. Now I understand why Spot Track is projecting that John Feliciano gets 4 years and $33 million, $8 million per. Because holy yikes! First of all, I don't want John Feliciano back for that money. I honestly thought we could give him Quentin Spain money. We probably could have given him Quentin Spain money if we had re-upped him sooner. But if that's going to be the market for John Feliciano, no, thank you. I know he loves Josh Allen. I know his teammates love him. I know he's probably got the most tenacity of anyone on that interior. But holy yikes with that contract, $8 million per, scary if that is what Spot Track has going. But Ryan Teal comes in. Sorry I was late with my last super chat. That's okay. Don't worry, Brian. Did we miss the super chat? Is that what you're trying to say here?
I don't know. I don't think so, but if we did, I apologize for that.
Yeah, we'll try to dig it up if we missed it, Ryan. But I'll tell you what, the new Spot Track projection for Darrell Williams, 2 years, $16 million. Sign me up. Sign me up for that.
I would do that.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Oh,
I would do that in an absolute heartbeat.
Freiermuth.
Oh, our apologies, Ryan.
He is a big Pat Freiermuth fan,
Yeah,
which
dude,
I can get behind that.
I'm at the point where if we don't draft Pat Freiermuth or Brevin Jordan in the second round, I'm probably gonna cry myself to sleep on that night of the draft. Because I'm falling very much in love with Pat Freiermuth and Brevin Jordan. But
me too.
Darrell Williams, 2 years, $16 million. Darrell Williams, 2 years, $16 million. I would do that in a heartbeat. He loves Buffalo. He might take a little bit of a discount to come back to Buffalo. I'm not saying he would take a massive discount. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's that attached to Buffalo, but I do think he has a sense of attachment to Brandon Beane. I do think he liked the culture here. I do think he liked winning. I do think he liked playing on an offense that catered to his skill set. I think if Darrell Williams is offered 2 years, $18 million from someone and 2 years, $16 million from Buffalo, I could see him turning down the $1 million and the $2 million. So I'm really on team bring Darrell Williams back and recreate the interior, because I'm looking at some of the names at offensive tackle. There are the bigger names out there at offensive tackle that you can pay, but you're just paying them to do, you're going to be paying them Darrell Williams money. If you're looking for bargain bins at offensive tackle, we're talking Sam Tevy, who's an absolute turnstile in San Diego and has been for years. He's a guy who you might want to consider as like a swing tackle to replace Ty Nsekhe. James Hurst.
I have James Hurst on my list. Yep.
LaRaven Clark and Joe Haig. LaRaven Clark mostly as a reclamation project because he's a massive turnstile, but he played for Bobby Johnson. Joe Haig played for Bobby Johnson, but I see him more as a guard. Kendall Lamb, who was a swing in Cleveland this year, and Denzel Good from Oakland. Like, that's what I'm looking at.
I had Kendall Lamb and James Hurst on my list. The other two names I had on my list, one guy from the Steelers who's coming off a major injury, and that's Zach Banner. He's a massive dude. He's like 6'8", 360. He can play right tackle. He's decently athletic. He's played some snaps. He played some snaps for them earlier this year, and I think he had an ACL injury, if I'm not mistaken. But, as a reclamation project, maybe. And then the other guy I had, who's probably going to get mid-tier money, I would say, because he actually played pretty well this year, and that was Roderick Johnson from the Texans. He's coming off a 1 year, $1.75 million deal. We'll see how much more he gets from that, but he's only 26 years old.
Yeah, that's a player you can sign. Like, that's a player you're literally signing for potential, right? So you sign him and maybe get him for 3-4 years. Yeah. And when he first signs that deal, you're like, yikes. But then he played.
Right? They have Tunsil and they have Howard. So he was a rotation. I mean, he played 245
He played when Titus Howard got hurt, I believe.
He played when Titus Howard got hurt, and he graded out well. He was 61 pass blocking, 74 grade from PFF on run blocking. So, I'm not saying he's a bargain bin, but I'm not saying he's going to cost a ton of money either. So Roderick Johnson at 26 is maybe a guy that you can bring in, but I'm kind of with you on this, Steve. I think that you're more likely to get a bargain in the interior than you are on the exterior. So if you can get Darrell Williams back 2 for 18 or 2 for 16, then
And two of these guys on the outside could be bargains on the inside. Joe Haig, I had a man crush on him 2 years ago when we first started.
Yeah, we both liked him.
He's a guy you could kick inside. And Denzel Good, massive human being over there in Las Vegas, and they had a really good running game there with. Why am I blanking on the name of their running back? Josh Jacobs. They had a really good running game there in, I also said Oakland, in Las Vegas. So, but to me, when I look at the names in the interior, Lane Taylor could be a nice reclamation project. He's a guy who lost his job in Green Bay, won it back, and then had bicep surgery and has been out since the first game of the season. So no money, there's nothing to look back on for Lane Taylor to pay him money. but he's been there, done that for a Green Bay Packers squad. Another guy who's been injured most of his career, Forrest Lamp. He's a guy you might want to take a risk on.
Yeah, Ryan Sullivan, Wyatt Davis. I love it.
We'll get there, Ryan. Don't you worry. Kalichi Osemele.
Major injury he's coming off of.
Yeah, and then Elijah Wilkinson, who I kind of like for Denver as a sort of, but I always liked him as a backup, like as sort of a backup who can play everywhere, kind of like Joe Haig is a backup who can play everywhere. We're not talking starters here. Moton is a Panthers free agent. He's going to get big money.
He's going to get big money.
It's him and Daryl Williams. It's him and Daryl Williams out there looking for that right tackle money. So,
yeah, just to forewarn people, we're probably not doing our mock draft tonight because we are an hour in and we're not even to defense yet. So just bear with us. It's going to be fine because we're focused on free agency first anyway. So a couple other guys on the interior I had. I mean, Fluker, if you want to sign him to a 1-year deal, you know, he played with the Ravens this year, number 1 rushing offense. Obviously, he's coming off a 1-year deal. Another guy that's battled injuries. I had Forrest Lamp on my list too. Look, he's old, but he's still grading out as a decent run blocker. But the problem with this guy is he's pretty much a left guard only, and that's Mike Iupati. So you're probably not going to bring him in as a 1-year cheap deal. But,
if you're looking to fix your running game though, and you see Ike Butker next year as your interior swing, like don't get me wrong, I like Ike Butker, but the dude can't run block. Like he's Mitch Morse left guard, a guy who can pass block for days and does very well with Josh Allen in that shotgun offense. But you try to run the football with him, and it's like, yikes. So if you want to make Ike Butker your backup that won't embarrass himself and make him your left guard, right guard, center flex backup next year, maybe Mike Iupati can slide in there as your left guard.
Yeah, but then you have to move forward back to right guard where you really want him at left guard.
Who gives a shit? He sucks. He's a boss.
We're using that B word a little. All right. So then the only other guys I had.
I'm messing with the Cody Ford. It's my job to judge, Nick Watkins.
Yeah. You are the judge. You are the judge. The other two guys
I'm not sleeping on Cody Ford. Everyone calm down. I was
obviously we can't go a show without mentioning former Panthers. So I'll mention Mike Schofield and Chris Reed. Now Chris Reed,
Mike Schofield's
flexible. He can play tackle. He can play guard. He's 31. He's probably going to be pretty cheap. He only played for $1 million and $1.5 million this past year. Better than Brian Winters, better than that kind of option. So Chris Reed's probably going to stay their starter. They're going to bring him back, so I don't expect him. But Michael Schofield is a guy that could also be a bargain.
We got James Cortez coming in saying draft Wyatt Davis or Rashawn Slater or Elijah Vera Tucker or Trey Smith or Alex Leatherwood or Ben Cleveland or Quinn Meniers to replace Lee Seno. And James, this is a perfect segue because I've said this before, and let me pull it up on the Draft Network. Let me pull up the big board. When I look at this draft, boy, do I see a ton of guys who are going to go off the board between like 20 and 70 that are plug-and-play starters, that are future starters, that like they're not going to be studs. Like Penei Sewell is going to be a stud. Christian Darrisaw is going to be a stud. These guys aren't going to be studs, but like this is the list of tackles that could go somewhere between 20 and 75. Jalen Mayfield, Alex Leatherwood, Liam Eichenberg, Samuel Cosme, Jackson Carman, Dylan Raduns, Tevin Jenkins, who I'm not as high on as other people, Walker Little, Spencer Brown. I even like Brady Christensen as a future swing. Like there is some talent here at offensive tackle, and all these guys are going to come off the board in the second and the third round. Some of these guys, if they don't work out as a tackle, can roll into and can swing in to be a guard, like Jackson Carman and Alex Leatherwood. And then you look at the guards. Like, let's look at the guards here. Interior offensive line. What is happening?
Wyatt Davis, baby. Wyatt Davis. That's my guy.
You have Elijah Vera Tucker, who's rising up boards, but he could still be there at 30, possibly. I doubt it, but possibly. You got Wyatt Davis, Creed Humphrey, Landon Dickerson, who scares the heck out of me with those injuries, Josh Myers, Deontay Brown, Trey Smith, Ben Cleveland. Randy's probably going to like Sedarius Hutchinson. I don't know too much about Sedarius. Trey Hill from Georgia. I really like Aaron Banks from Notre Dame, and we haven't even gotten to Quinn Meniers yet. So I'm also a big fan of Jack Anderson from Texas Tech. So literally, I just named like 20 dudes. The middle of this draft, like if the Buffalo Bills went at 30 and drafted like whoever, right? And then in the second round got Creed Humphrey, and then the third round got Walker Little, I'd cream my pants. I'd absolutely cream my pants. Like I'm not gonna sit here and try to find another way to say it. If we can add Creed Humphrey, who can come in and play guard right away, and then eventually replace Mitch Morse, and then draft Walker Little to come in and play swing because he's got left tackle, right tackle, flex, and I also think could be our starting right tackle one day, I'd absolutely cream my pants. Like that would just be an all-time big man draft for me. Give me the big defensive tackle in the first round, like whoever's left. Give me that big fatty defensive tackle in the first round, and then get me Creed Humphrey, get me Walker Little, and I'll be like that South Point gif. My room will just be covered. Just be covered. You won't even be able to recognize it.
You'll be like Randy Marsh at his computer.
Yes.
When he gets the internet.
Screen will be covered. This screen will be covered in a foreign substance that you will not appreciate if that is our draft. Because these guys are legit. These guys are legit. Like there are so many plug and play linemen this year. It is fun to.
Here's the thing: if you do,
because then it doesn't hang around.
If you do Manscaped, it's easier to clean up. But I'll say we're going off the rails here. All right, I guess we're gonna get to defense now.
Yeah.
So let's get to defense.
But defensive end, I'm going to go off the reservation here and say one of my free agents this year is also on your list. I love Morgan Fox from Los Angeles. Is he too Quentin Jefferson-y? Is he too Quentin Jefferson-y?
He was a 3-4 end, right, for the Rams. So, but he had 6 sacks as a backup. I was looking at his numbers. He's
so good. He's so good. He's Derek Wolf.
6 sacks.
Derek Wolf reincarnated.
He had 6 sacks playing only on average 25 snaps a game. He was only making $825K last year. Is he going to – the Rams are not in great cap situation. He's going to be gone. He's going to be a free agent. So if the Bills feel like he could be a fit in a 4-3 as an end, then yes. I just worry that I would love to have him. I just don't – I wonder if he's like – if he's more of a 3-4 end than a 4-3, and which is why I also like Derek Wolf, but he was obviously more of a 3-4 as well. But I love Morgan Fox. I think he's great. I think he would be a great addition.
Yeah. So to me, he's like a Trent Murphy type of money guy. I see a couple people in here mentioning Leonard Floyd. Do we really want another Jerry Hughes type edge rusher that's kind of on the smaller side? Like, because that's what, to me, that's what Leonard Floyd is, right? He's a smaller, bendier edge. Maybe I'm wrong. And, maybe I'm right. Give me Leonard Williams. Yeah, you got $20 million laying around.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bargain. That's not a bargain.
But yeah, is getting younger at the defensive end position doable? Sheldon Cole says with the super chat. Thank you. It's doable. I think Carlos Basham in the draft, Ejiofor from Duke in the draft. There are some guys in the draft. Jones from Pittsburgh. There are some guys in the draft you can get in the second, third round. Which can add some youth to go along with AJ Epinesa. The question is, do you want a guy who can maybe contribute more, like a veteran presence, because that defensive line was such an issue last year? I see Morgan Fox coming in and like playing a little bit of defensive tackle, a little bit of defensive end, setting the edge, and just being a player that the Bills Mafia would absolutely fall in love with. If you don't know who Morgan Fox is, look him up. But I think he'll get a Trent Murphy type of contract. I think some team will pay him in the $6 to $8 million range, maybe more.
Yep, I think so too.
Here is my sleeper, and this is a guy who, this is my legit sleeper. This is a guy who has impressed me for a really long time now. This is a guy I've wanted on my team for a really long time now. This is a guy who missed all of last year with an injury, so you might be able to get him on a bargain. A guy who, in his career, he's probably more of a rotational defensive end, but I think he'd be a great third defensive end to come off the bench and add some bulk. That's what I want from our edge this year. I want some bulk. I'm done with the smaller guys. I want me a little bit of bulk on that left side. Ronald Blair of the San Francisco 49ers, 6'4", 270 pounds. This guy's had a 5.5 sack season. He had a 3 sack season. He's always been a rotational player there in San Francisco. He missed last season with an injury. I think Ronald Blair is a guy you could bring in on a short-term prove-it deal who could come into training camp and really make a name for himself and compete on this defense. I'm really big on Ronald Blair from the San Francisco 49ers.
I like Ronald Blair. I think that's a good option. Here's an older guy that I think could be an option for the Bills. He only had a $1.3 million contract in 2020, and that's Vinny Curry. He's played in a 4-3 as a defensive end. He's flashed as a sack guy in his career. I mean, he's only had 8 sacks over the last 2 years, but probably cheap. But if you're talking about younger guys, and I know the comment was, can we get younger? Here are 2 younger guys that maybe we can keep in mind. Morgan Fox. What about Charles Harris from the Falcons? Former first-round pick from the Dolphins. Had a few issues. Like, he's not maybe the biggest, like, processy guy, but, I mean, he had 3 sacks as a part-time guy playing in a 4-3 defense under Raheem Morris. He's coming off his rookie deal. He was I don't know if he's going to be a bargain. That's the problem. Is he going to get mid-tier money or what? But this guy has potential. He was a former first-round pick, and he's only 26 years old. So, and he fits the scheme. He fits the type of defense we play. So if you're looking for a guy that has some decent size, has pedigree, and has a little bit of production as a backup, and is looking to maybe make a name for himself, then maybe look at a guy like Charles Harris.
Yeah, and somebody mentioned Takk McKinley. Like, again, I don't want the small guy. Like, AJ Epinesa came into training camp 15 pounds lighter than I wanted him. Somebody get AJ Epinesa, whatever Julian Edelman takes. Get him back on get him on some roids. Sorry, that was a low blow. It wasn't a low blow because Julian Edelman's a Patriot, but somebody get AJ Epinesa back into the 270 range. That's the defensive end I want. That's the defensive end I think Sean McDermott's had success with in his career. Greg Hardy, Charles Johnson, Trent Cole. He's always had success with guys who are like 260 plus. So to Mario Addison, back when Mario Addison hadn't clearly lost a step. So I was so excited about the Mario Addison signing. I thought
he was like your sleeper for the whole year. Like, that was your guy.
He was. I was really disappointed in the season we saw from Mario. He just looked like he had lost a step. But speaking of adding some size, speaking of adding some power, throw this one on the bargain heap for me.
I know who it is.
Oh, guess. You gonna get? He's a big name to be on a bargain bin list, but he might be.
Oh, well, then maybe not. I was gonna say Aaron Lynch, but
nope. Even though I like Aaron Lynch,
because he's a big boy.
Yeah, Aaron Lynch is Jadeveon Clowney.
Okay, not a bargain. Maybe not.
If you can get injured again in Tennessee, right? If you can get JJ Watt for JJ Watt, because someone just mentioned JJ Watt in the comment section. If you can bring in Jadeveon Clowney on a 1-year prove-it deal, 1 year, $6 million, right? With some very minimal guarantees, maybe the guarantees kick in, whatever. If you can go out and you can get yourself a bargain bin player, and that bargain bin player's name is Jadeveon Clowney on like a 1 year, $6 million prove-it deal, that adds, and he can stay healthy, that's some power, that's some bulk to the left side, and I think that takes a lot of pressure off of Jerry Hughes to be more of that bendy edge rusher that Jerry Hughes is. So, Randy Hartman says Clowney won't accept a prove-it deal. That's what he took in Tennessee. This one would just be half that because he got hurt again.
That would be a really interesting trivia fact, though. Think about it. Like, Bruce Smith, defensive end, #1 pick overall, was drafted by the Bills. But then if we were to sign Clowney, that would be 2 separate #1 overall picks that we've had on the team that we did not draft at defensive end with Mario Williams and Jadeveon.
And they were both drafted by the Houston Texans.
Yes, exactly. What a trivia. What a piece of trivia right there.
Dietrich Wise from New England also stands out maybe as a guy you could come in and be a rotational defensive end. So if he's good enough for Bill Belichick, he's got to have some potential, right?
I mean, the only other 2 guys I had on my list were Lynch, who I already mentioned, and then Benson Mayowa from Seattle had 6 sacks.
He's gonna get some money. He's gonna get some money.
He is, but he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
So we'll see how much money he gets. He probably won't be a bargain, but if maybe he could sneak into the mid-tier range. I don't know.
Well, Spud just got to my mid-tier guy for defensive tackle. I love Lawrence Guy. He's a defensive tackle in Buffalo.
Great segue, Spud. Great segue.
Yeah, we're moving into defensive tackles now. If we were going to pay a guy like $5-6 million on a short 2-year deal, like 2 years, $12 million or something, 2 years, $10 million, that's what Lawrence Guy is probably going to cost you. New England's definitely going to want him back, and New England's got a ton of money. So my guess is he probably ends up back in New England, but Lawrence Guy is one of my favorites on the free agent market right now. I would absolutely love the Buffalo Bills to bring him in. He would be, I think, a great piece next to Ed Oliver, and he would free up a lot of things for Ed Oliver to be successful. But I like a lot of the veteran defensive tackles out there. I'm not saying any of them are great, But I actually see a bunch of guys who, if you sign them, could legitimately be bargains if you can get the best football out of them. And it's a lot of big fatties. But before we get to the big fatties, my boy Christian Covington is a free agent again.
You love that guy. And wait, before we really segue to defensive, would Trent Murphy be a bargain bin defensive end?
Fuck you.
I'm just joking.
I don't think in the history of our friendship I've ever told you to go fuck yourself, but I just did.
That's how you know we're really comfortable with each other. But anyway, yeah, defensive tackle. Let's Covington. You've liked him for a long time, and we've kind of missed out on him a couple times now. So
but here's the thing, like, don't you feel like we're coming full circle? Like, this just shows what free agency is like, because we're literally repeating names that we already spoke about 2 off seasons ago, because like they're being cut by the teams that signed them. So
there's gonna be a funny name on my list here that on defensive tackle, which I'm sure you have on your list too. But
I got another mid-tier guy I had was Shelby Harris, who we talked about last year. But Ryan Kerrigan is actually Sheldon Colbert. Before we get to the tackle, Ryan Kerrigan is a free agent. I wouldn't hate it. Again, he's more towards the tail end of his career, but I wouldn't hate Ryan Kerrigan either. I think he might cost you a little bit more, but who knows? You probably get him on a 1-year deal. The defensive tackles that I had were Snacks Harrison, who we always talk about.
Have him on my list.
Corey Peters from Arizona, who I like as a veteran. Damata Pecco, who's really old, like 37, and he's more of a 3-4 guy. But hey, he eats up space. I just put all fat guys on it. All my guys are fat. They're all fat. They're all just fat as fuck. Every single one of them. If you're talking about fat, I put Pennell on my list. Pennell is on my list. Steve McClendon is on my list, even though he's probably just going to play out the rest of his career in Tampa. And John Jenkins is on my list as well. Find me a fat guy. Just find me a fat guy.
Because, I mean, in a way, we are kind of getting a free agent back with stars, right? I mean, so that's nice. I mean, I had Pennell on my list. I had Snacks on my list. Funny name I put on my list who's maybe going to get bargained to mid-tier. I mean, Vincent Taylor, bring him back. He's a free agent. He's only 27. Bring him back. Yeah. And I also have I can't go without mentioning at least one guy from NC State. So I'll mention him, T.Y. McGill from the Eagles. He can play backup 3 technique behind Oliver. He's been a decent player in his career. I did have Nunez Roches on my list, but the more I think about it, I'm not so sure that he's going to be a fit. But they did have a really good run defense in Tampa, but he'll probably be more on the mid.
Somebody asked about Tim Settle. I think Tim Settle's got 1 year left on his deal in Washington. I just Googled it. I like Tim Settle as a player, but contract 5/10, 2018, signed a 4-year contract with the Washington Redskins. So I don't think Tim Settle's a free agent. I didn't see him on the list either. So
no, he's not. I don't think.
So someone asked, how are you going to replace Matt Milano? You're not, unless you draft like Chaz Surratt or Dylan Moses in the second round. And that's the point we wanted to get to, because somebody asked about in the super chat. I see a couple of guys who I think could fill in admirably.
I bet we have the same names here.
Admirably, but it's going to cost you $5-6 million. How about the NFL's leading tackler, linebacker on the free agency market, Neville Hewitt? I love Neville Hewitt. And I wanted Neville Hewitt 2 years ago when he would have cost us way less. Neville Hewitt's probably going to get $6-7 million after racking up 100 and however many tackles. Devondre Campbell was playing out of place, I think, in Arizona. Had a pretty successful, and he still played pretty well. Nicholas Morrow from Oakland and Jayon Brown. Those guys are all mid-tier to me from Tennessee. That was my list of like guys who are probably going to cost you. So I know I'm cheating a little bit, and those aren't bargain bins. But if you're replacing Matt Milano and you're looking for a bargain bin, like it's going to be Darren Lee and it's going to be Tyrell Dodson. Like that's how you're going to bargain bin replace Matt Milano.
I mean, that's why I was really struggling with linebacker to find guys that I felt comfortable signing that would not like, why not just bring Darren Lee back or Dodson? So the guys I had on my list, and these guys are, I don't know. It's hard for me to gauge because of the age, but I had Pierre Lewis from Washington. He's about a $3 to $5 million guy a year, graded really well as a coverage linebacker for Washington. He's 30 years old though. So again,
I wouldn't mind him on a small deal. He's pretty good at the line of scrimmage too.
He's pretty good. I had Malcolm Smith from the Cleveland on my list.
He was on my bargain bin side of my list.
Yeah, he's
former Super Bowl MVP,
number 16 overall linebacker from PFF. Only made $1 million in 2020. Graded out well in pass coverage. And at age 32, maybe you get him on a bargain. And then the only other really guy I didn't want to put him on my list, but I did just because he would be a bargain. It's Michael Kendricks. I don't know, like I don't really think we would sign him, but again, a Washington guy who's kind of resurfaced. He's played in a 4-3 in Philadelphia and Seattle, so I don't like him. Pierre Lewis and Malcolm Smith would be the two guys.
Yeah, I like Pierre Lewis. I like Malcolm Smith. I really love Neville Hewitt. I really think Neville Hewitt could be a really good fit, and Devondre Campbell. 3 other guys I had that I didn't really like, but I put their name on the list because I think their scheme fits. Camus Grugier-Hill from Miami. Jordan Evans from Cincinnati. Sort of a high draft pick from Oklahoma. Never really developed, so maybe that's a guy you could bring in to try to develop. And I really like Chappelle Russell from Temple. He finds himself on the free agent market again. So, it's interesting. Mr. Wick, oh no, says AJ Klein is still here. Yes, he is. What's your point, Mr. Wick?
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding. To me, AJ Klein just slides back into the role he was meant to play.
Mhm.
The strong side linebacker, a guy who can play on special teams, a guy who can play at the goal line, and a break glass in case of emergency type of linebacker. Somebody mentioned Josh Bynes. To me, Josh Bynes is a 34 linebacker. I don't know if he's got what it takes to drop back into coverage like the Bills drop their linebackers into coverage. Is Josh Bynes a good linebacker? Yeah. And he's probably going to be a bargain for some team. I just don't know if he's a scheme fit here in Buffalo. So that's why he didn't make my list. But his name did stand out. So, yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't even get to corner, so I'm going to need you to carry me for the last part. DBs.
Yeah, I mean, corners, we've talked about Richardman, but he's not going to be a bargain bin. I mean, Xavier Rhodes is a guy we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably bring him in for like half of what you brought in Josh Norman for last year, maybe 1 year, $3 million. I mean, that's what he had with Indy. Rashad Breeland, he's 29. You can maybe bring him in.
We always mention Rashad Breeland too.
You can maybe bring him in for a little less than you signed Josh Norman. Again, there's not a ton of bargain bin guys I like out of this list. Troy Hills made himself some money with the Rams after like he's had some flashy plays this year, but he's 30 years old. So how much money is a guy like Troy Hill going to get on the free agent market? So and Jason Verrett too, right? He's coming off a prove it situation, but he was decent, although he did get torched by Stephon Diggs. Maybe he's a guy that you could look at as a bargain, but again, probably more of the mid-tier type. I looked at the corners and I didn't really see a ton that I really liked that I would say, yeah, bring this guy in because he's going to definitely be better than like Dane Jackson or Levi Wallace. That's where we're at. I feel like with corner here. I mean, the same kind of guys keep showing up, right? Like Darryl Roberts, like those types of guys keep showing up on these lists. If it's me, I like Xavier Rhodes personally. I think he would be a good value. I think you bring him in, then you kind of round out that group with Dane Jackson and Levi Wallace to go along with Trey White, and you kind of have those 4 guys: Xavier Rhodes, Dane Wallace, and Trey. And then if something happens in the draft and you find someone good, then you're not too committed to Xavier Rhodes. Yeah. So that's kind of where I. That's
well, you got Randy coming in and saying Mackenzie Alexander. You mentioned him before. That's $8 million a year according to Spot Track.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's not I'm even stretching with some of these other guys, right? I'm saying like $3 to $5 million, but Mackenzie Alexander is going to get over $5 million a year easily.
Yeah.
Probably.
I like Chidobe Awuzie, but I think he'll be $8 million a year too, or around there. Yeah. I'm looking over this list now because, like I said, I was not the most prepared for this one.
Shaquille Griffin's going to get money, even though Seattle's defense was not great in the back end. But
Jerrion Conley, Kevin King. I don't think Kevin King is really a fit. He's more of a man corner. Ken Crawley maybe is a guy you can try to rebound with. A guy who
Dante Johnson maybe. Dante Johnson,
former Buffalo Bill Dante Johnson.
Yeah.
I really like Michael Davis from Los Angeles Chargers. I thought he has stuck out quite a bunch in his career. I think he's the name on this list that's going to get paid more than people think. I think Jordan Lewis,
years old, 3 picks, he'll get paid.
I think Jordan Lewis is going to get paid, but he's more of a nickel guy on the inside. Desmond King is obviously going to get paid. I'm not too inspired. Akila Witherspoon, Darqueze Dennard is a guy who could come in. He's 30 years old. He was a guy I've had on my list before. I don't hate Darquez Denard as a guy who can be inside outside flex, a guy who can be your backup boundary corner, and a guy who can be your backup nickel corner. Add a little bit of veteran presence to your defense there. So that should be interesting. Someone just came in and said, the Spud said, what about Keanu Neal move to linebacker? Because I was a big fan of Keanu Neal when he came out. And I know he's a free agent. So it's been a while since I've done my research on Keanu Neal. So let me pull this up. He tore his Achilles. He missed 2019.
He's had multiple major injuries.
I believe, he's been dinged up. 6'1", 220. So, he's in that Matt Milano range if he added some pounds. That's not the worst idea in the world. You're getting creative there.
Randy thinks McKenzie's not getting $8 million a year. Maybe not, but I don't know that the Bills are. I mean, look, if the Bills are going to replace Josh Norman with that same contract, then sure, maybe they give him $6 million. But again, is that where they're going to spend their money? I don't think so. Just based on what Bean said about giving Dane Jackson a chance to come and compete, I think it pretty much meant the writing was on the wall that one, Norman wasn't going to be back, and two, they weren't going to spend a ton in free agency on a corner.
Someone said Malik Hooker would make a great linebacker too. He always seemed like more of a center fielder to me, but obviously to each their own on their assessment of a prospect. I'm looking on this Keanu Neal. He was top 10 among safeties. Grade out as a 68 overall on PFF.
100 tackles last year.
100 tackles, pass rush. He was brought in. That's a really interesting concept. So Matt Milano, former safety at Boston College, looking into a player like Keanu Neal, who has the size and it plays in the box as a safety. Looking at a guy like Keanu Neal as a possible option to come to Buffalo and play linebacker and transitional linebacker is something that's interesting. I'm not saying it's within the realm of possibility, but I like that sort of outside the box thinking here because why not? It's the off season. Let's have fun.
Yeah, and it's a great way to talk about the safety position, which I feel like we don't really need to do
because Neal was shaky in coverage. Opposing quarterbacks had a 98.3 passer rating when targeting him. Neal gave up 74% of those targets.
Oh, we know Atlanta's back end was pretty bad.
Think of Jamal Adams in Seattle is when talking about you having Neal closer to the line of scrimmage allows him to use his aggressiveness, hard-nosed style most effectively. He was able to play a full season, provide quality snaps down in the box and the slot this past season. But giving Keanu Neal more than a 1 or 2 year deal with his injuries is a little overzealous. An incentive-laden short-term deal, 2 years, $10 million. I would take that for Keanu Neal moving to safety. That'd be pretty sweet. I like that, Spud. I might clip that. From earlier.
I'd rather have Hamza in the draft, but hey, that's
you can't always get what you want, Dave. You can't always get what you want. I haven't even looked at the timer. Oh my god, we've been doing this for an hour 20. I didn't even look at the timer today. Any kickers or punters?
Didn't even look at them.
Can I be honest? Because I know we've been going for an hour 20 now. We got James Cortez coming in. Sorry. He says Luke Kuechly for Bill's assistant linebackers coach. We did just lose our assistant linebackers coach to Vanderbilt. The thing about Luke Kuechly, though, is I believe he's taking the Dan Morgan route, and I believe they're carving out a spot for him in the Carolina front office. I could be wrong. Maybe he doesn't want to stay in Carolina. Maybe he wants to find a different organization. But I think, James, based off of things I've heard, and it was last offseason, that Luke Kuechly wants to go the front office route. He does not want to go the coach route. Could be wrong. And we got a super chat from your boy Lettuce as well. Do you want to pull that up, Dave?
Yeah,
I'm pulling up safeties here to see if we got any safeties we can throw in the box.
Oops. Sorry. Yeah, your boy Lettuce says we need to work on DT getting Starbacks all right, but he might be cut for the cap. No, he's not going to be cut, and the reason is you actually lose more against the cap by cutting him than by keeping him.
Yeah, Star's the guy you're stuck with.
You're stuck with him. I mean, the fact of the matter is like when you look at his cap hit for 2021, he is a $7.6 million cap hit. But if you cut him, it's an $11.8 million dead cap hit. So you're actually incentivized to keep him more than you are to cut him. So, and plus we kind of need him, honestly. So he'll be back. And yeah, that's why we will be keeping him.
I really
Randy
like Harold
Hardman says
Joseph. I wonder what his. I
he's
wonder
a
what
big
his.
hitter. I mean, he's always played with a lot of like swagger and attitude.
Mhm.
Seemed like a guy that
He
could have
was
been
he
really
was my
great.
favorite last offseason. I wanted him to come in and play that nickel role.
Mhm.
He's going to be about $8 million on average with that prove it deal he signed in Cleveland last year, according to Spot Track. Again, that's not the holy trinity or anything. But
Bojo's an RFA, I believe, so he'll be back if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So those asking about Bojo.
Hey, Dirty Dan's available.
Dirty Dan Sorensen? No thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, Keanu Neal is the only big safety that really fits that mold. I guess you could say Dirty Dan fits the mold too a little bit at around 220, but fuck Dirty Dan.
Didn't look a ton at safety just because it seems like
Mhm.
a position we've already invested some draft capital in with Jaquan Johnson. Maybe we bring Dean Marlowe back. We've got Hyde and Poyer there. We've got Saran Neal. So I just don't see it as a huge free agent target, but maybe in the draft. We'll see.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that should just about wrap it up for tonight. I don't know. You got any other takes you're looking to get off your chest before you get out of here?
I'll just say,
before you become a father.
There were a lot of good thoughts in the comments section tonight about players, and like I know we were really trying to focus on like the bargain bin, like bottom of the barrel type guys. There were some interesting thoughts around some of the tight ends with like Jonnu, and I think someone mentioned Hunter Henry as well. It'll be just really interesting now to see how much pressure that if this cap goes up to 185, that's going to alleviate on the Bills. I would imagine that Brandon Beane, like if I'm kind of trying to get inside the head of Brandon Beane, I think he's going to operate under the assumption that it's 175 regardless. And if it happens to be 185, great. But I think the moves he's going to make are going to be with the expectation that it's 175. And then if it is 185, maybe that gives him some room to play around with maybe some extensions or something. So
how could we forget?
Picks.
How could we forget?
Oh God, because I mean, the Chiefs are gonna
I
win.
haven't watched a second of coverage for.
I haven't either.
Neither. I do I have to pick, Reed? I guess you paid us. We have to pick. Give me
30. Chiefs 34, Bucks 31. There you go.
Give me.
You can tell we're really into it.
So part of me wants to pick Kansas City in a route, but then another part of me thinks that Todd Bowles is a really good defensive coordinator, and he's not going to.
Don't give a rat's ass about this.
Here's the thing: Todd Bowles is not going to do what Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier did, and just let Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce get free release off the line of scrimmage all game, literally at will. Those two had free release off the line of scrimmage. I say Tampa Bay will probably play a little bit of stronger defense, despite the fact that I think Kansas City is the better team. I'm going to go Tampa Bay. I'm going to go Tampa Bay 27. Tampa Bay 27, Kansas City 23. Patrick Mahomes gets the ball in his hand. You can tell how little I give a shit about this game. Patrick Mahomes gets the ball in his hand. Down 23 to 27, has a chance to win the football game, and gets intercepted by someone.
Maybe Murphy Bunting, since he's been all over the field.
I love that name, and he's just everywhere.
Yeah,
Murphy Bunting. That was the name I was thinking of. I can't remember his name. It was really long with a hyphen. That's where. So I'm gonna go with Tampa. I'm gonna go with Tampa Bay. And so here's the thing: if you're looking for a bright side of the Super Bowl, Kansas City just absolutely butt fucked us. Like they just killed us in the AFC Championship game. So it's tough to root for Kansas City after they beat you down like this. But there's one of two ways to look for this. If you're looking for a bright side, if Kansas City wins, you lost to the best team in football, right? You lost to the
and my pick, my Super Bowl pick's correct too. Then, if that's the case,
yeah,
winner.
And if Tom Brady wins, it hurts, right? It hurts. It stings. Not again. Why? Like you just ask yourselves these questions watching Tom Brady hoist the Super Bowl trophy again. But if there's a silver lining to it, at least you can hold it over Bill Belichick. So at least you can be like, suck it, Bill. Like Tom won one without you. So as
Yep.
much as it stings to give Tom Brady that credit, at least you get to hold it over Bill Belichick a little bit.
Well,
so that is my one silver lining if Tampa Bay wins this thing.
And I will say this. I mean, there are a faction of people that hate the Patriots organization, just regardless of who's there. And there are a faction of people who hate Tom Brady. I mean, there are obviously a faction of people who hate both. But for me, I think I'm leaning more towards I hate the Patriots organization and everything about them more than I hate Tom Brady, the individual. So I actually, it's hard for me to kind of separate the two because obviously Brady screwed us for years, right? But the Patriots organization is really what was like hanging over our heads for so long with Belichick and Brady and Kraft and the whole thing. Like, it's just.
Did you see the big thing this week was like former Patriots like eating their young? Like Danny Amendola just came out and was flame throwing a lot of people. Like that was the thing this week is they were literally like, don't get me wrong, I can't speak at length about it because, like I said, I've just tuned it all out.
At least someone has to lose the game. That's great. There you go. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Like I said, I've avoided it, but I've seen clips here and there. Like it's getting so bad that like I'm listening to political podcasts to avoid football this week. It's getting into that realm. I'm listening to music again, which is something I haven't done in quite some time. But it's like it seems like this week on all the morning shows, it's let's bring on former Patriots to either rip on Tom Brady or rip on Bill Belichick. Like the Patriots of the past have just been on national media this week. At least is what it seems like from a distance, just eating their own, like eating like they're young. It's been kind of fun to watch from a distance.
It's been fun to watch from a distance, and your boy Lettuce comes in with a super chat here right at the end. Says, "Fuck you, Tom Brady." I assume that's what that stands for. I'm assuming that's what that stands for. Respect the skill set, hate the man. Yeah,
that's great. I never would have gotten that. FYPB.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I guess that pretty much does it for tonight.
One more thing. Mitch comes in and says, "What do you think about moving Edmonds to outside linebacker?" It's not out of the realm of possibility, but if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm giving it one more year. Like
he's 22.
He's 22 years old. Like it's just give it one more year. Like all these people, like that was the big thing on Twitter today is everyone just decided that they wanted to fucking rip apart Tremaine Edmonds today. Like that was just every day we decide to pick a new player and just absolutely tear them to shreds. That's what we do on Twitter. So if you're not there, come join us, I guess. But today was let's just incinerate Tremaine Edmonds. And it's just like this is one of those things where I have no data to back it up. I'm not going to point to you at the film and tell you why to be like to feel promising. All I'm going to say is the dude's an absolute freak. The dude is 22 years old. The dude played half a season with a injured shoulder. This is not something I'm really going to give a damn about until like halfway through next year. That's when I'll start investing myself emotionally in the Tremaine Edmonds conversation. It's just one of those things where I just don't want to touch it right now. And I don't think it's something you really have to touch. Could you? Yeah. Do you have to? I don't think so. At least not yet. James Cortez coming in saying Lorenzo for assistant linebackers coach, mentor the young linebackers. I would love Lorenzo Alexander in a special teams coaching role. I feel like he's the guy who's always given me the vibe of a future head coach. Unfortunately, from everything I've heard from Lorenzo, he has absolutely no interest in it. He wants to get into the analyst side of the game, kind of like Eric Wood and EJ Manuel. He lives out here in Scottsdale. He lives about 30 minutes away from me, and he is a regular fill-in host on their morning show out here in Arizona. And he's quite good at it, and he makes his appearances on One Bills Live and a couple of other things. So to my knowledge, I would love to add a guy like Lorenzo Alexander and Fred Jackson to a locker room as coaches, but I just don't think their hearts are in it to want to do it.
Yeah, they're into their family too much. With Kyle Williams. I mean, in respect to them for that, right? They've got great families. They're involved in their kids' lives, and they're able to do that now outside of football, and they still get to kind of be with their kids as they're growing up. So especially you can see it online with those three, particularly Fred, Kyle, and Lorenzo. So
Once I figure out his jersey number, I'm probably going to buy an Isaiah Hodgins jersey this offseason. So everyone just be prepared for that. Whether it's 87 or 83 or 6. If it's 16, I probably won't because I don't like that number. But
was that Brad Smith?
I don't know why. I just don't like 16 on receivers. And until I saw Stephon Diggs wearing 14, I hated 14 on receivers.
Well, 16.
Stephon Diggs just pulls it off.
You didn't like Sammy Watkins wearing the
14? No, he looked terrible in 14.
But I mean, there really aren't a lot of receivers in 16. Like Brad Smith was the only. Wasn't Brad Smith 16? I think he's the only one I really remember wearing 16. I mean, from what I remember, receivers always wore 80s, and I feel like, and I could be, someone check me on this, but I feel like Deshaun Jackson was really the one who started the trend of wearing low numbers when he wore number 10, and then it seemed like a lot of people after that started wearing the low numbers.
I could be losing my mind. I'm trying to think of. I want to Google it before I embarrass myself. Yeah, Marcus Colston wore 12. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Marcus Colston was one of the first players too.
Yeah, him and Deshaun, I think, were kind of the early trendsetters of wearing the low numbers, and then now you rarely see receivers wearing numbers in the 80s. It's
Randy, where is CJ Spiller coaching? Is he coaching with JP Lossman at Clemson? Because that would be hilarious. JP Lossman is a coach at the University of Clemson, by the way. The last person I'd ever expect to be a coach of football players was JP Lossman, because that dude just loved to bro out on his boat. Like he did not seem like a grinder to me. So that was funny. But yeah. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that will officially do it. We love you. We respect you. We appreciate you. I'm just using adjectives now. Running back coach at Clemson, says Spud. So you guys truly are the third host. We're going to try our best to bring you the best off-season coverage we can. Some days it'll be draft. Some days it'll be free agency. Some days it'll be topical. Some days it'll be just like, let's let loose. I think it's a lot less stressful in the off-season. I'm going to get myself some hemp sandals and just grow my hair out. By the time this year is over, by the time we get
not growing your hair out already, it looks pretty long.
It's getting there, but by the time we get to like training camp, I'll just be like sitting here shirtless. I'll be wearing those like short sleeve button downs with none of the buttons will be buttoned. Drinking out of like a coconut cup.
You can have like a puka shell necklace to go.
Yeah, there we go. I'm just gonna totally bro it out. I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna totally bro it out by the end of this offseason.
Better Manscaped though.
But
I don't want to see that chest hair hanging out.
But this is also the point where I'm trying to get to is like, can we all chill out this offseason? Because already on Twitter, people are at each other's throats, dude.
Yeah,
like,
they're bad.
At each other's throats.
People are acting like so high and mighty and going after each other. It's like, can we, like, it's kind of toxic right now on there, man. That's why I haven't really.
The great Jackie, when I'm calling someone toxic, you know there's a problem. When I'm calling someone toxic, you know there's an issue. And I'm calling Bill's Twitter toxic right now. Yeah, like as the great Jackie Moon once said, everybody love everybody.
Love
Dave, your last show, as someone who doesn't have a child, I believe, I'm making the prediction now that the next time we see you, you will be a father. So congratulations.
It's possible. Monday would be the only possibility of my next show not being a father, because induction scheduled for Tuesday. So there you go.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the man who is probably sterile to the man who is going to be a father sometime in the near future, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.